So in this video, what I'm going to get in terms of stuff I like to do is a topic I call presence of mind. And the reason why I'm going to cover this is because when I'm usually teaching, especially, one of the things I like to do is I like to frame things in the proper context. You know, one of the things you see in the reality-based martial arts all the time, you know, and other martial arts too. So it's not just the reality-based martial arts, is somebody will present a technique, they'll be doing a demonstration, and then of course in the peanut gallery on Facebook or YouTube or whatever, you know, you get all the so-called experts coming out of the woodwork criticizing the technique or saying that this won't work or that's not realistic. And the reality is most techniques, especially if done with extreme ruthlessness and violence, will work. And the reason is the bad guy has to have the presence of mind of knowing that a person they're dealing with is capable of doing the things they're doing. And if the person has the will, a lot of times they can actually turn the tables on bad guys. You know, the truth of the matter is the vast majority of people who successfully defend themselves in a self-defense situation, including with guns, are not trained martial artists or not even trained fighters. Some of them, if they use a gun, maybe they only had a course that they were required to take in order to get the pistol permit or the, you know, the license. So what's the deal? The reality is most martial artists are decent people. Most martial artists, especially at the higher levels and the professional levels with MMA, with karate, with boxing, with Muay Thai, with wrestling at the elite levels, these are people who work very hard, right? They don't have time for stupidity. More importantly, the vast majority of them are just too disciplined as human beings to be engaging in criminal behavior. It's just not something they do. So it's not realistic, especially when people say, well, how would you deal with a boxer? How would you deal with a kickboxer? I'm not fighting some trained boxer or kickboxer on the street. That's not who you're dealing with. So what you gotta understand is when we're talking presence of mind, what we're really talking about is the 1 in a million situations where you gotta take care of your business and somebody attacks you and you do whatever it was you were trained to do. And this is a very important thing because of the fact that, again, when we're talking presence of mind, the person you're dealing with, if they attack you or whatever, has to know certain things up front. They have to know you can move a certain way. They have to know you will respond a certain way. This is the reason why criminals are very careful of who they select as far as targets, because, you know, if you're a criminal and you're mugging people, you know, the more you go against people who look like they're going to be a problem, the more likely you're going to have a confrontation that you don't want. Remember, the bad guys don't want to get hurt either. I mean, the reason they carry weapons and do what they do, they don't want to get hurt either. So I'll give you an example of presence of mind. Let's say, you know, I'll probably cover this in another video, and you'll see my dogs here, you know, they're running around, and you might even hear them barking, and the reason for that is they're just not having it today. So anyway, but let's say I'm in a situation, you know, and I got some Stu-Nods standing in front of me, and, you know, that individual looks like they're going to do something, whatever that case may be. And there are certain behaviors, and I'll probably do a demonstration of this in later videos, that people exhibit when they're getting ready to attack or they're getting ready to do something. And so the one thing, though, that they can't always predict is you doing something like that and just going off on them. And the reason is again, they have to have the presence of mind of knowing you're capable of doing that, and then they have to have trained themselves on some level, whether mentally, whether physically, of how they would respond to somebody just going off on them. And so when you're watching a video of a demonstration, and I want to point this out too, remember that the people being demonstrated on are cooperating. And so obviously demonstrations are not realistic or a true reflection of a real attack, because if it was a true real attack, the person demonstrating the technique that you're supposed to do, they have to hurt that person or even perhaps kill them. You know, it's kind of like on the pistol range. You know, I'm shooting a paper target because it's safe. You know, if you went out there and stood in front of that target, you're not going to fare well if I'm putting holes in your body in places that they're not supposed to have holes. So it's the same kind of thing. So when we're talking a technique, you know, whether it's a chop, whether it's a palm strike to the chin, whether I'm kicking somebody in the groin or the shin or whatever the case may be, or I'm just stepping off line and hitting, the person, again, that you're dealing with have to have a certain resident knowledge and understanding, however they acquire it, to be able to deal with that. And I think this is a very important thing, especially as you continue on. Later on this summer, coming up in 2026, you know, when the book on, you know, the Art of Warrior Flow comes out, we're going to get into this stuff because we're going to teach you not only how to do stuff in your body and all the drills we have. We're just going to throw everything in there and so that you have it all. But more importantly, we get into the psychological aspects so that as you're training, you train with the proper framework and the proper mindset, and also train to do things within the proper context. I cannot overemphasize the importance of context, which will probably be the subject of another video, because of the fact that it is one of the most crucial aspects of any kind of training, any kind of learning in the martial arts, is no exception to that.